Hello. Welcome, challengers. We are so happy you could join us today for our very first of a series of Thursday Power Lunch webinars, or Power Afternoon Snack if you're joining us over there on the East Coast or Middle Coast. That wouldn't be a coast. Anyhow, we'll be hosting through November 1st. The idea of these webinars is they'll be down and dirty. We'll keep the presentation short, right around 15 minutes, but we promise the return on your investment will be huge. In an effort to respect your time, we'll hold all the questions until the end of the presentation, at which time we'll open the discussion up and enjoy a little Q&A session for those of you that have time to hang around. That said, please submit your questions as they come to you so you don't forget. We're queuing them up over here on our side, so don't worry about interrupting the presenters. Kicking off our series today with Yes and, we'll be hearing from Natalie Corwin of Pet Community Center in Nashville, Tennessee, and Seth Montgomery from Metro Nashville Animal Care and Control. Natalie Corwin moved from Denver to Nashville more than 20 years ago to pursue a career in music, but when she adopted a chow mix named Sophie from the shelter, her life was quickly changed. Isn't that the story for so many of us? In 2011, she co-founded Pet Community Center, which is working to make spay and neuter and preventative veterinary care accessible for pet owners across Nashville. And since 2011, pet homelessness in Nashville has dropped by 50%, and PCC has served more than 55,000 animals. Wow. Seth Montgomery, joining us from Metro Nashville Animal Care and Control, is the Safety Net Coordinator. In mid-2016, Seth started diversion efforts within the open admission shelter in order to retain owned animals within their homes by connecting families to resources and services such as medical behavior assistance, spay and neuter, and pet pantry needs. The Safety Net program focuses on counseling sessions, alternatives to intake, as well as managed intake, and the family is not able to keep their pets. And since 2017, MACC has seen roughly 35% decrease in pet relinquishment, wow, and continues to work towards being a resource center for the community of Nashville. So without further ado, Natalie and Seth, take it away.
Well, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Seth and I are thrilled to be able to share Nashville's story with you today, of course, focusing on cats. And similar to the cities that you serve, Nashville has a very large population of community cats. And additionally, the cats in our shelter were experiencing higher euthanasia rates than the dogs, extremely low return to owner rates, and of course our shelters were flooded with kittens every year during kitten season. So in Nashville, we used a really highly collaborative approach between Metro Animal Care and Control and Pet Community Center. And as we mentioned earlier, Pet Community Center is the nonprofit, and Metro Animal Care and Control is the government municipal shelter. We spent about 7 years using a targeted trap, neuter, return strategy to humanely lower the outdoor cat population. And we did that by meeting every month and looking at the intake stats at the shelter and figuring out where the cats were coming from by zip code and sometimes even by specific streets and neighborhoods, and then targeting our services and helping to trap in those neighborhoods where we were seeing the most cats. And it was very effective. Since then, we've seen about a 45% reduction in cat intake at the shelter over a 4-year period, and so that it was very, very successful. But then, of course, we had reached the proverbial low-hanging fruit, and we had to start to look for new ways to help cats in the shelter. We still were about, I think we were, at that time, we were still at about 50% or 60% live release rate for cats in the shelter, so we still had a lot more work to do. So what we did was we landed on a 3-pronged approach, and you can see here in the slide, the first one was return to field, the second was managed intake, and the third was alternative to intake through a safety net program. So I'm going to share some information with you about the return to field program, and then Seth will talk a little bit about the other 2 strategies. So return to field, in case anybody, it also is called a shelter neuter return. So it's the process by which community cats enter the shelter and then are diverted from the shelter. They're spayed and neutered, vaccinated, ear-tipped, and then returned to their original home territory. And this approach was definitely a new concept for Nashville and can be a little bit controversial because it challenges the way that our community had dealt with outdoor cats for the past several decades. So as you can imagine, we do have to deal with concerns and complaints and questions from the community. So what I thought we would share with you today is some of our most common questions and complaints that we receive and how we address them to try to find middle ground and find a way to say yes and instead of no, we don't do that anymore. So one of the most common things that our staff hears is, I see cats, there's cats in my neighborhood, or there's a cat in my basement, come pick it up. And several years back, I think probably around 2014, the animal control officers stopped picking up cats in the field. So now cats that come into the shelter are brought in by the public, and officers don't trap or pick up stray cats that are roaming outside. So some of the alternatives that we have developed to offer, we share deterrent information, and sometimes we even buy deterrents, so that can include anything from a motion-censored water sprinkler. We've bought car covers for individuals who didn't want cats walking on their cars, or any number of, citronella or any other thing that we could help to kind of keep the peace with the cats and the people in the neighborhood. We also share information about the vacuum effect, and we talk about how some of the cats are not good candidates for indoor home adoption, and that in Nashville there are no leash laws for cats, so it is legal for cats to be free roaming in the neighborhoods. And the one thing that we really took advantage of in sharing this information is we didn't reinvent the wheel. We used resources that were already readily available from Best Friends and Alley Cat Allies and other reputable resources, so we didn't have to spend a lot of time putting together those resources ourselves. One of the things we offer is we offer free trap loan for anybody that wants to trap cats to have them spayed and neutered, and we don't require a deposit, so that really took away some of the barriers to getting the cats brought to us. And so if somebody said there was a cat in their crawl space, we offered to let them trap the cat and bring it either to the shelter or to the spay-neuter clinic. And if they came to the shelter, then we would transport them to the spay-neuter clinic. And then our staff offers free trap loan and coaching, and we do a lot of over the phone talking to folks who are trapping cats because it can be a little bit stressful if it's your first time. So usually we also share with people that usually we find that there are more than one feeder. There's more than one feeder in the cat's territory range. And oftentimes the finder of the cat, the person who brings the cat to the shelter, is not aware that others may be caring for the cats. So if the cat is tame, we often recommend that they put a temporary paper collar on the cat to say, "Are you mine?" and put a phone number on there, or even a breakaway collar and write on there with a Sharpie, and then wait a few days and see if they are contacted by anybody. We also offer to help them make flyers and encourage them to hang the flyers in the neighborhood. And Nashville also has a very active Lost and Found community on Facebook, and so we encourage them to get connected with that community to try to see if that cat belongs to somebody. Another of the top concerns is that cats have kittens, and people see the kittens being born and they are concerned about their welfare, and really the answer to that concern is spay and neuter. So we share information with them about how to access our low cost and free spay and neuter services and trap, neuter, return. And if they find kittens, we do encourage them to try to keep them with a mama cat. That's preferable. One tip that we like to offer to them is to put the cats back where they were found and put a ring of baking flour around the kittens and then check in the morning. And if they see paw prints, then they should leave the kittens alone and allow them to stay with the mama cat until they're weaned. And then we also have lots of information about kitten care in case the kittens truly are orphaned and they need to start bottle feeding, or if they can foster them until they're at least 8 weeks old, that's always preferable instead of bringing them into the shelter. So the next slide here illustrates how impactful the Return to Field program has been on cat intake in Nashville and the outcomes of the cats that are in the shelter. So our spay-neuter clinic in Nashville opened in mid-2014, and the Return to Field program started in 2016. And you can see there was a big drop in cat intake between 2014 2014 and, or a modest, yeah, big drop between 2014 and 15, and that was due to our targeted spay-neuter efforts. And then we sort of hit a plateau, and then you can see another dramatic decrease in euthanasia between 2014 and 2016, and that's where we stopped using euthanasia to control the number of cats in the shelter and started using return to field. And sharing this data with the public has also been an important part of our customer service strategy. We share the life-saving impact this change in policy has made, not only because it's helped the cats, but it's also positively impacted the dogs too, because now the staff in the shelter has time and resources that they're diverting from community cats, and they're able to focus on dogs and the other cats that are available for adoption in the shelter. And our community is very, very animal friendly, and they really expect the shelter and the spay-neuter clinic to provide services for animals, and they also want to see us working together to save animals. And the return to field process has helped demonstrate our commitment to saving animals and using the resources of the community wisely. So that's a little bit about that piece of it. So I will turn it over to Seth, and he can tell you a little bit more about the Safety Net program at Metro Nashville Animal Care and Control.
Thanks, Natalie. So yeah, we launched the Safety Net program here at Metro Animal Care and Control in mid-June of 2017 as a soft opening. And what we did is focus on some counseling sessions with pet owners to get a better understanding of the pet and dig further into the issues surrounding why animals in Nashville are being surrendered to our open admission shelter. What we found is a lot of behavior counseling needed to be happening. Some access to vet care is a huge opportunity, and also, of course, spay-neuter. We still have a large population of over-altered animals, or under-altered animals, as I should say. Between June of 2017 and September, with these counseling sessions in place, getting a better personality profile of the animal, recommending alternatives to intake, we saw a 23% success rate in diverting animals from our shelter, which is an awesome feat to be done. With that data, I submitted that to the Board of Health because we fall into the health department, and kind of piloted a managed intake program and got the green light to do that. So we started officially in October 2017 with a pet helpline, both via email and phone, where individuals will call in, leave a detailed message, and then a counselor actually calls them back and discusses further what the area of concern could be, how we can give them alternatives to surrendering the animal to Metro Animal Care and Control, be it behavior concerns, free spay-neuter vouchers, access to care for veterinarian costs up to a certain dollar amount, and behavior counseling as well. We actually kind of launched a voucher system for subsidized veterinarian care, where we got a grant to help members of the public, and we've actually been able to help over 60-something animals already, which is an amazing feat to also be done. So the goal of the program was really to create a more culture based on compassion, respect, and transparency for the public, and of course to have a live outcome for that animal. Diverting animals from the shelter, keeping pets with their families for that human-animal bond, and of course decreasing, pet relinquishment at the shelter. A big aspect of that is that judgmental culture from the standpoint of the staff. So this encourages people bringing their animals to the shelter to be more open about the reasons they're surrendering their animal. We can have a better understanding of the opportunities in place and better help those individuals. During staff feedback, our staff felt extremely rushed during the intake process. There were very long lines usually outside the intake door from 10 a.m. to 4 a.m. Tuesday through Saturday when our intake is happening. I mean, our largest number of intake at over the counter, is the term, as you all know, it was 95 animals in a 6-hour period. That was a really hard feat for a lot of our staff members, and it really created a lot of fatigue and burnout, and that was a main concern of the Safety Net program too. We want to help people, we want to help animals, and we want to make sure that our staff is taken care of as well, because we can't do it without them. And utilizing the appointments has given the staff more of kind of like ownership and more of a social worker aspect to help more individuals and create longer standing relationships. And of course, they're more efficient with their time and focusing on those counseling sessions when they're not feeling rushed to just be like, okay, I'll take your animal, and just really diving down into those concerns and being that resource for the Nashville community.
Fantastic. Wow, 23%.
So yeah, as we see here, our SafeNet program so far for cats alone from October to current is 37% success rate for diversion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I love what you said about transparency and respect. We know that when we don't have both those things, we don't always hear honest answers from people surrendering their animals. And if we can't truly measure it, then we can't manage it. So with that, I have a question for you. Is this staff exclusively, or are you able to train volunteers to be in some of these roles as well?
Yes, so our volunteer program is continuing to grow, and we are working on job descriptions to leverage our volunteer skill set in order to help serve that program to another level. Our staff is only, so many, and we do have quite a few more volunteers than we do staff, so we are working on appropriate measures for training.
Oh, wonderful. That's great to hear. All right, Natalie, our first question is for you.
Okay.
We were told 4 weeks is when kittens can be separated from mom, as she can go into heat when they are 4 weeks and leave the kittens. We are in South Texas, where it is warm all the time. When should kittens be separated from moms?
I think that's the $1,000,000 question. I think it's really, for us, it's a case-by-case basis, but, sending the kittens, if the kittens are going to go into a foster situation and not into the shelter, I think it's probably okay to go ahead if they're eating on their own and are able to, kind of survive without mama. I think that's okay. Obviously, 4-week-old kittens, we really want to avoid sending those kittens into the shelter. So if the individual finding the cats doesn't have another alternative, we do try to encourage them to, leave them with mama a little bit longer.
Excellent. Beth, next question is for you from Miss Kim. How do you deal with burnout issues, Seth?
Well, we're big about, again, the SafeNet program has really helped with understanding the stress that the staff, of course, is experiencing. But we really try to do a lot of engagement, like movie nights, potlucks, and that's both with our volunteers and our staff together because engagement is so key. And that kind of helps individuals better understand and just really making sure that the training is there. That's the biggest thing. If you're trained appropriately too in these efforts and kind of step back and understand where those individuals are coming from and their hardships, you can kind of better serve them and point them in the right direction. So a big thing, like I said, is engagement, making sure that they're supported as best they can and having fun times. We host, we call them, I forget what this management team calls them, but it's kind of like mid of the year. We'll host like a barbecue for our staff and our volunteers. We do Thanksgiving night. We do a lot of movie nights when the weather permits and things like that. And that really does help the staff.
A lot of appreciation.
Yes.
Seth, our next question is from you, and it's from Laura from my hometown of Anchorage, Alaska, which is probably why our question was pretty similar, but I'm going to just ask you one more time in case you have anything to add. Did you need to add staff to manage the Safety Net program, or are volunteers involved? And hi, Laura in Anchorage.
So when the Safety Net coordinator, my role was just a 1 FTE role in order to build and coordinate. The front clerical staff, we have only 4 of them at this current time. So those individuals deal with a lot. They answer our dispatch calls. They answer the public's questions. They process adoptions. They, too, are very intricate to these counseling sessions and better serving the public because of the front of the lines. So we actually didn't add any additional staff other than my role, and we are continuing, like I said earlier, to work on getting more volunteers involved for them to better help the public.
Oh, that's fantastic. Natalie, Gay is wondering, have you met with any resistance from local vets regarding your free spay-neuter efforts? Always a great question.
Not particularly about spay-neuter. I think by the time, I think we've done a pretty good job of communicating with the vet community about the importance of getting these cats spayed and neutered, what was happening to them in the shelter. And at one point before we had a spay-neuter clinic, we actually reached out to every single vet clinic in our county because we were basically a small TNR organization, and so we would trap cats and take them to any vet clinic in our county that would give us a discount on the services. And so, and a lot of them just didn't really want to deal with community cats in their clinics. And those that did saw it was just like a never-ending stream of cats that needed to get spayed and neutered. And we were clamoring for more appointments, and the need was really huge. So I think the veterinary community got to experience firsthand how big the need was, especially for community cats. And then we do offer free spay neuter for pets in certain circumstances as well. And, now that we've been open 4 years, I think the other vet clinics have seen that their businesses have actually started to continue to flourish and that we haven't really taken away any business from them. I think in the beginning there were a few eyebrows that were like, oh, I'm going to keep an eye on this, but we've been really transparent, and have offered vets stop in anytime, come see what we're doing, and get a sense of who we're serving and what we're doing, and that seems to have been pretty effective.
Oh, that's fantastic. There's certainly enough cats to go around, right?
Yes.
Natalie, one more question. Did you also loan out traps to people who had lost their cat?
Oh, yeah, we do that, yes. And sometimes, the Lost and Found community in Nashville also, they have some traps that they've purchased for that same purpose. So if we're running really low on traps, like in the summer, we're so overwhelmed with TNR projects, but that sometimes they'll loan out a trap to somebody that's lost a cat. But yes, we do make those available, and we also even have some dog traps available as well for folks that are trying to catch their scared dog.
Yes. Hey, Seth, where did you get those grants?
The first one we got was from PetSmart Charities, actually. That was a pretty substantial grant. It was $25,000, which made a huge dent in the things we need to do. And I recently just acquired another one. We have a SAFE coalition here in Nashville, and it was funded by Mars Pet Care. And so the most recent one we got for going into 2019 was from Mars Pet Care.
Wonderful. Thank you, Seth.
And if I can add something to that too, sorry. I know that, and just for anybody who's out there, Mars Pet Care has launched a new grant program, and it's Better Cities for Pets. And these types of programs, especially collaborative between public and private organizations, they're really interested in that. So I'd encourage anybody. It's kind of new, so some folks may not have heard of it, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Oh, thanks for mentioning that, Natalie. Very helpful. Beth, do you have any advice for an organization who's ready to implement a safety net position and program paid staff position? What's your best advice?
From my understanding, when the role was being talked about, it was a big thing through being the government. It was ran and pushed through council. We really looked at best practices throughout the nation and really talked about how intake diversion is the best practice and progression for animal welfare, especially in sheltering. And when you are a high, intake open admission shelter servicing, we service 526 square miles is what Davidson County is. We had to take a better approach, a better understanding the bottleneck when animals could just come in. So it's just really researching. And when I went into the role, I researched over a course of a year and holding some other interim positions and kind of best practice around the nation and spoke to those key members and kind of made it our own, taking some of those because like Nana said earlier, recreating the wheel is not needed, and we definitely did a lot of just checking into things. You really just have to have that information, and a lot of people will talk to you about the whole abandonment percentage will come up in conversation when you aren't just taking in animals. Again, back that data in your conversations when you're advocating for a program or a staff member in order to do that, that's almost non-existent. There's not good data to show.
That's right. And now look at the proof is in the pudding. I mean, the percentages that you're able to put forward. What an investment.
Yeah.
What an investment. All right. I just want to take a moment to thank you two so much for kicking off our series. Such helpful information and useful, and like you said, in the name of not recreating the wheel, sharing with other shelters the trail that you have blazed. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
And Of course, and we're right there at 25 minutes, so we're just going to go ahead and wrap up. I want to remind everybody in the bottom of your screen, you'll notice a green widget, and that will show you the upcoming mini webcasts that are coming every Thursday now through November 1st. So just take a moment right now, click through, register for the ones you're interested in. If you have questions that didn't get answered today or you have ideas about other webcasts you'd like to see, take a moment and email us at #allthecats@millioncatchallenge.org. We always love hearing from you. And last but never least, we want to take a moment to thank Maddie's for all of your support in providing this platform that allows all of us to come together and grow. Thank you so much, Maddie's. And everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for joining us on our first mini Webby. Have a good one.